Hello there from Chase Field, the NLCS improbably tied 2 games apiece. I'm Kellan Olson, joined by Alex Weiner, our D-backs beat writer. We're tied at 2, D-backs Phillies. Alex, where do you want to start? It has been an insane, 27 hours, 28 hours?
Yeah, both of these games. Unbelievable. Let's start with the end. Why not? So, seventh inning, at that point, throughout the entire game, it kind of felt like this tension in the building, like waiting for something to break, and nothing quite did until it did for the Phillies, where, this was kind of a game where both teams were going to rely heavily on the bullpens. And with so much moving parts, whichever team played cleaner was going to have a good chance to win this thing. And neither team really did. It was a pretty poorly game as far as defensive mistakes and some walks that really hurt the Diamondbacks, especially when they fell behind in, I believe that was the 6th inning.
Yes.
Where, Andrew Softberg walks the bases loaded, and then they bring in Ryan Thompson, they get the chopper, the throw home is low, it gets away from Gabriel Moreno, and all of a sudden the Phillies are in the driver's seat here.
4-2.
But they finally get that one thump that they needed to tie the game. Alec Thomas becomes the hero of the night, him and Gabriel Moreno, who had the game-winning hit later. But just a huge moment for Thomas, an unbelievable shot off of Craig Kimbrell. And, man, the kids keep doing it.
And then Gabby follows it up, and Torrey again, like everything that he has done, there has still been just as much noise in terms of doubting his decision-making, but everything's been working out. I think the Moreno move is not one anyone doubted, to be clear, but moving him into 3-hole, and then that sort of moment coming up where you need your 3-hole guy to be in that situation, he was, and hits a no-doubt single out there, and then all of a sudden the game is going. Sewald, it was like on the Sewald experience scale, it was about a 5.5. He let the game-winning potential go-ahead run get to the plate, but it was smooth sailing after he struck out all 3, right? Struck out the side, I want to say.
Yeah,
Man,
he did.
This game was all over the place just because it was a bullpen game, sort of, for both teams. It definitely was for the Diamondbacks. For the Phillies,
it's essentially a bullpen game. He didn't mace that many hitters.
It was essentially, that's a really good way of putting it. And then it seemed like Torrey's, I'm calling it a gambit, I guess, to not use a long reliever paid out. Typically in a bullpen game, you do see that guy who's going to be an innings eater in that sort of sense, like 2, 3, 4 innings maybe.
Yeah, we didn't get the Ryan Nelson, Slade experience.
No, they weren't in there, and it worked out. Miguel Castro, the heart of the order, just nothing. I was like, this is going to happen. And then once those guys started to actually enter the game, Saul Frank especially walks the bases loaded. And it's like, this nearly worked. They nearly had it, but you're at too high of a level of postseason baseball to make a mistake like they did on that throw. And it seemed like that was going to be the difference maker. But then the Phillies had their own kind of meltdown going on. I think that, to me, was the story of this game, Alex, was just the two bullpens. Now they both couldn't figure it out, and the Phillies were the last ones to screw it up, I guess I'll say.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But also the back end of the bullpens, when you look at them, the Diamondbacks got it done, and the Phillies not really. Kevin Ginkel comes in, clean. Sewald, you mentioned, gave up the double, but for the most part, fairly clean. And that wasn't the case. Craig Kimbrell was a mess in this game, and Rob Thompson had to answer a lot of questions
we'll
about
have his plaque
how
in
he used it.
Cooperstown at some point, and he was the guy.
He was the guy who gave up this game, really. They left him in for quite a while in this. Once he was, pitching into the 8th inning, and Cattell single, and then Corbin Carroll gets hit by a pitch. There was obviously questions: why did he face Carroll? They had Jose Alvarado, a lefty, ready to go in the bullpen. They leave him in there, and then they bring him in to face Gabriel Moreno, the right-handed hitter, and Gabby just pieced that ball up. And another huge moment for him. Him, Thomas, and Corbin, and Geraldo Perdomo, and all the 23-year-olds have had huge moments in this postseason, and it's continuing. And as long as they can continue to have that, they'll always have a chance in this.
I think it's a really good way to put it, because part of the way I was thinking about this team in August and September, once Corbin started trailing off a little bit, but still had a spectacular year, don't get me wrong. But I just feel like anyone
he had to adjust as the league adjusted to him.
He absolutely did, but then his teammates were like, we're not just going to be this team that gets carried by a superstar. Like, anyone could step up on any given night, and that team showing up in the postseason is extremely dangerous, and that's what we've seen so far. It's good that you brought up Corbin. He's 1 for 15 in this series, but Christian Walker's 1 for 13. Tommy Pham got moved down the order. He's 1 for 13 as well. I think it's 5 strikeouts for Walker and 6 for Pham, if I'm remembering our story on ArizonaSports.com correctly. That is going to have to change for them to win this series, I think, but playoff baseball is weird, maybe not. I don't know, but looking ahead to tomorrow, whew, I want to say, like, it's pretty predictable, the battle of the Zacks.
Yep.
We got Gallen versus Wheeler. Gallen with some redemption left, and Torrey said postgame there's no one he'd rather have in that spot. than Zach Gallen. It feels like the script is set, especially with the way the bullpens are diminished. Like, we're going to see these guys at least throw 100 pitches, probably more. What are you expecting tomorrow, man?
100 pitches, man. A D-back starter going 100 pitches.
I know.
That would be different than what we've seen this postseason. But
yeah,
I mean, I'm curious what sort of the flow of the game is going to be, because like today it was so muggy with all the pitching changes, and then we got to the middle innings, and then the walks and the defensive blunders, and then so are we going to see just a duel tomorrow? That wasn't necessarily the case in Game 1. Zach Wheeler was spectacular in Game 1. Gallen made a couple of mistakes with the fastball, and in that environment, the Phillies just jumped on every single mistake he seemed to make. So we'll see what kind of bounce-back performance they get out of Gallen now that he's at home. We'll see what kind of difference this atmosphere gives that kind of matchup. Wheeler's been terrific all postseason long, so we'll see if they can finally sense a crack.
I'm not going to make a prediction. I have no idea what's going to happen. We've
seen
too much insane baseball the last 2 days to really know. But what I do know is, mentioning that time frame and short window, in less than 24 hours, the D-backs could be one win away from making the World Series.
It's a best of 3.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
With where we were, with how it felt like the Phillies were just this juggernaut who can't stop slugging homers. They did get one from Schwarber, but anything can happen at this point. I don't know what's going to happen. Alex doesn't know what's going to happen. If you're telling yourself you know what's going to happen, I don't believe you. You're a liar. We'll be back tomorrow from Chase Field for more. Tied up at 2-2, Game 5 tomorrow. We'll see you then.